Good evening, everybody. I must say, I was truly honored when Mike asked me to speak tonight. Granted, I already had an outline for the speech written because, honestly, it goes Mike better than me. I've been by Mike's side for 3 of the 5 major portions of our lives. Growing up at Marlboro, sleepaway camp, and city living. We played on the same basketball, soccer, softball, and stickball teams. Have running rivalries in billiards and Madden. And I've been to about 20 Dave Matthews shows together. And if I didn't already mention, we've played lots of stickball and Madden together, the other kind. With so much time together, I have just enough knowledge to break down Mike's life into many different eras. So here, everybody, is the story of Mikey T. First, there was the cute little blonde kid that liked to stick his tongue up his nose era. I guess it was endearing to watch him tilt his head and dig for gold and then eat it, basically. But it's cute when kids do that. Granted, it stops being cute when you're like 11, so it was a little weird when he was doing it until we were like 24. But this era was before I knew him, but based on pictures and family stories, I'm pretty sure we've got it covered. Hi, Nolan. Next, which is when I first became friends with Mike, was the, I don't know, whatever you want to do era. I guess Mike didn't really have much of an opinion when we were teenagers. Maybe he was just open-minded, but he was definitely down for whatever, and it made it really easy to hang out with. Many of our favorites in the room era was during high school, which we will call the basement era. What happened in the Tenenbaums basement, and particularly in the utility room, will stay in the Tenenbaums basement. What I will say is that it involved many, many, many topless women. It's really legendary, actually. Must have been something in the crystal light iced tea in that house. Maybe it was the fish tank in the basement. Girls just felt comfortable down there. I'd be a teenager. The next era was the URI era. Nothing happens in Rhode Island, so we're literally going to skip this story. Sorry, The next era was only 2 months long, but it was the high point of our youthful lives. I say youthful because if I don't add that in, it would make it seem like meeting Emily and marrying her wasn't the high point of Mike's life. That's the high point of his adult life, but the high point of our youthful life will be called the summer of tea. In this era, Mike ran things. In the summer of 2006, our last sleepaway camp, not only did he produce the greatest album of all time, T Mix 06, which we literally listened to on the way home from the bar every night for 2 months straight, but he actually had people around camp flashing him teas wherever he went. Big T, little T, mini T, and mustache T. The creativity was relentless. And Mike would, of course, acknowledge them with a tea of his own. If we could have lived these 2 months forever, we would have. As long as Emily was like a second-half camper and joined the party later on. Then there was the fall from grace. The next era was the grumpy Smurf era. I don't think Mike coped well with graduating from college and the idea of working for the rest of our lives. Commuting didn't help either. To be honest, Mike was a real negative Nancy during this era. The poor kid just wasn't happy. And who could blame him? That transition sucks. Luckily, it was short-lived, because after 2 years, Mike moved into the city and became my roommate, what we'll call the NYC era. This era involved lots of sports watching, fantasy talk, games of stickball and Madden, quiet, awkward mornings sharing the bathroom. You would think there was a lot to say about this era, but really there wasn't. In retrospect, it was probably because he didn't use any product in his hair. Once that happened, we entered the flip era. This is also known as the Emily era. We convinced Mike to start using some product in his hair, a little flip in front of the today. And within weeks, maybe days, he met Emily. It's like in the movies when the girl lets down her hair and takes off her big glasses. Mike was a stud, and there was Emily scooping up. She became the fourth roommate, which was great. I ate the second half of all her meals. Used one of the 4 Snuggies she left in the apartment. And I was the safest person in New York City during Hurricane Irene. She taped a big X on the glass balcony doors in our apartment, as if that would have done anything. It was during this era that I got to know Emily. Emily and I grew up in the same town, and we actually went to college together too, but for some reason we were never too friendly. Granted, she's marrying a guy who lived about 15 houses away, so I don't feel too bad about it. In the end, we came together through Mike. Emily's laziness made me look like I had the energy and can't sit still ability. We all know can't sit still. But at least she taught Mike to do some chores like the dishes and the laundry, so good work, Embo. Then we come to the end of an era. In this era, Mike moves in with Emily in Hoboken. It was a hard pill for me to swallow. Having your best friend as your roommate is actually very convenient. Not only did I love living with Mike, but I knew deep down he'd be better living off of the love of his life. During these eras, I saw Mike transform into a real man. Compromising, sacrificing, accommodating. Not that Mike wasn't always a great person and an even better friend, but it's different when you see a single boy become a man in a relationship. This weekend is the beginning of the next era, the Mr. and Mrs. Tenenbaum era. I know it will be an era filled with happiness, laughs, confusion, awkward silences, funny looks, purple pills, everything chocolate, sour watermelons, and mass amounts of DVRA. I'm so happy that I have Mike and Emily in my life, and I look forward to future eras, such as Little Tenenbaum, the Jets still haven't won a Super Bowl, and oh my God, he's actually turned into Al Tenenbaum.
Hey, Rob Clue!